is go to the second or third virtual console so that we can see the custom piece going. When we get into the RAID tools, notice that all the drive activities up here, this is hard drive A. This one is on the second IDE bus. It's not on the same bus. So this is A and this is C. So when we do the kickstart in our next phase, the RAID tools, you're going to see that Anaconda is going to configure these devices as RAID 1 mirroring. So you see both these lights flashing. Okay, so here it is. It did it. This is Virtual Console 3, and basically this is where the output for all the RPMs that get installed. This is standard out for all those scripts that run. And so I developed a little script, and you can see that's the output from the actual piece in the ks.cfg that we looked at just a bit ago. Soup configuration begin, it mounts the information, it runs my little post install, and what the post install does is basically just echo some text into a temp file in temp.
For those who don't know, that when you're installing a Red Hat system, you have 4 to 6 virtual consoles. You can get to by pressing Alt and then a function key. Alt F1 is the first one, that's your primary. Alt 2 is a shell.
And that's all residue of the projector back there at the top. It's not my system.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Device configuration and
kernel
detection,
kernel
messages.
messages. Okay, so go back to screen 1, and we're done. System's installed. We reboot, it comes up. I don't know how interesting it's going to be to watch a Red Hat box to it, but I'd actually like to get started with the RAID thing. So what we've done is we've created a, we basically took this kickstart with non-RAID and we added RAID options to the Anaconda installer. And let's go ahead and look at this while we look at this box. All right, so at this point,
is the reason that the kickstart went so fast because you installed so many packages?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. Well, plus I didn't have to sit and wait for my slow typing. Yes, enter. Let's see, was there anything else that I need to bring up about the Kickstarter? All right, I already talked about configuring the server. Create a public NFS shared directory. You have to modify the /etc exports file to make sure it's shared. If you make it read-only, you should be able to share it to the world. So, depending on how good you are as an administrator and how good you are at segmenting the different rules for your exports, that's the easy way out. Take a look at the etc exports file real quick. Or just open another shell. Okay. etc exports. There you go. I've got 2 lines in there. One's called public OS. The other one's called public baseline. And they're shared to everybody read-only. So I don't really care if anybody could install Linux from my servers. WAN. And then also you have to make sure that NFS is running. So if your box doesn't start NFS by default, you have to run the little etc init.the NFS start. And the utility you can use on Red Hat, I don't know what others are, but there's a utility called chk config. This allows you to add and delete those little RC scripts in the various run level directories, rc2.d, rc3.d. That's basically a little management utility, basically turns them on or off. You do a man on that, get the syntax. It's real easy to use, and there he goes. Okay. Newer features, like I already mentioned, the on-disk feature, allows you to specify which disk this partition is on. Also allows you to actually specify what partition of the disk you'd like to use, the on-partition option. And then there's also one called force primary, so that the Anaconda doesn't just keep creating partitions and in the extended partition area, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, other coolness. Keep going. Let's go to my other coolness features. All right, I already mentioned you can create your own little post install. And again, if you're using DHCP, you can really make this easy because you keep the ks.cfg files on your server, and you make the floppy just basically the same floppy everywhere you go. And then also the new version, the new install Linux loader, not Lilo, but Grub. My understanding is it has a version of Etherboot built into it, and this is something new to me, but I'm hoping that I might be actually able to use grub to initiate kickstarts over the network. So using grub, do a little DHCP, now I completely dissolve the need to have the floppy altogether. I've got a Sunbox in a PC. I can boot from the network without any other OS being on the system. Kind of a cool concept, especially when you talk about geographic distance between me and my servers. Experimenting and setting a Kickstart floppy to use a serial port. This is one of the things I'm kind of looking into. Ideally, I'd like to be able to manage the entire install over a serial port because those are my eyes and ears to my boxes. I don't have a monitor and I don't purchase those special little cards that do PC anywhere over a network. So if I can attach it to a serial port, the ideal way for me to do a Kickstart would be through the serial port. And then of course the serial plus grub is my theory, the totally unattended system remote load. So that's the end of Kickstart. We've still got a little bit of time left. Let's go ahead and start running with the RAID business. Why don't you quickly bring up and just show the quick differences. If you look at the partition layouts, it's a little bit different. We haven't been able to determine exactly what the rhyme or reason is for the numbers they choose. My only assumption is it can be similar to the Sun metadisk concept, where you just have arbitrary numbers that you use to refer to your meta devices, and you know, that's going to confuse half of you, and others will get it. But basically, you know, I'm saying create a RAID device on this particular hard disk, create a RAID device on that hard disk. Here's the sizes, and then at the very end, that's where I tell Anaconda, okay, now RAID those two file systems together and make me a mountable file system. And that basically is the piece that's the piece that binds those two devices together and turns them into one logical device to the operating system. Okay, that really is the only difference between those the two Kickstart disks. So let's unmount that mother and get this guy going. And what my main point here is what I'm hoping to do. If I'm not, what I'd really like to do is get this guy kickstarted and rated, and then Gordon will play some RAID games for you. And since I haven't done this, I don't know what's going to do my hard drive. I'd actually like to power off one of these disks and watch the system stay up, and you can see all the messages live.
What kind of drives?
These are my drives that I got from the dump, so I'm still okay.
What protocol do they talk?
Oh, these particular disks in here again are IDE disks. So
Not meant to be hot swap, hot plug by any stretch of the imagination.
They're not even different UDMAs.
yeah,
Yes, they are.
this one down here. We tried to get two similar disks, but the dump wasn't open today. So we had to go with what we had on the shelf. So we've got like an 8 gig UDMA 66 drive.
That's 33, is that?
This is, okay, and this is a 6 gig or 7 gig, and this guy here's a 2 gig drive.
Doesn't that cause a problem when you're trying to
No.
raid them together?
No, because on neither of those statements did we ever tell it to grow to use up the rest of the disk. We were very specific. So basically, and we also said, you know, on partition, on disk, we were very specific in how we formatted the drives. So shouldn't be a problem. We're just going to have an awful lot of unused space on this disk.
So the two RAID partitions have to be the same size, obviously.
You can only
What's that?
mirror.
Mirrors have to be
I'm sorry.
Yeah, mirrors have to be identical size.
Three 2 gig partitions for RAID.
We're doing mirroring, RAID 1.
Okay,
So we're basically taking the boot partition, mirroring across the two, which are two 25 meg file systems, and then basically we've left the rest to root just to keep things simple, and a swap. One quick point is that the Red Hat 7.2 Anaconda does not allow you to mirror swap during the Kickstart.
You don't want to.
Actually,
you do.
I do. Why would I not want to mirror swap?
Why would you want to wear a swap?
If my hard drive where my swap exists dies, my system's hosed. You have to mirror swap. And typically you're getting a performance gain, because if your RAID intelligence is smart enough, it should be round robin writes to either disk. So your performance should be a little bit better with RAID 1.
So is it reads, not the writes?
The reads, right. Yes.
I was just wondering if there's a utility that ran a similar type of functions where you want to actually like ghost a Linux system. Instead of running some of the BLU sequences.
DD,
and
yeah.
duplicate, actors. There is a way
Well,
one.
If you create one image and you have it at the same hard drive, you can run DD, which is disk dump or dump, whatever. And you just copy bit for bit from one hard drive to the other. You can do that. That goes for all practical purposes.
There was a Linux thing called partition image, and I tried it. Supposedly it's a la Ghost, and it allows for the growing.
What's the, that partitioning tool allows you to grow and shrink things?
Magic?
Hardnet, or Hardnet?
Yeah.
That's an open source project allows you, it's kind of like FDisk, allows you to go in there and say, oh, I want this file system, this directory, activity.
Both these systems come to that.
Yeah.
Actually, Red Hat 7.2 does also.
7.2 came with it.
So, okay, as you can see, it's already running, and both disks are flashing. One thing you'll notice is that this disk down here, I think, flashes a lot less than this guy. And I see a little disk I/O going, but every time there's a major read or write, this guy sits there and hangs, while this guy just goes flip.
Because it's one of them is UTF-8.
One of them is much faster.
And those of you who are familiar with IDE hardware, all the servers back home are all SCSI. But what I understand is there's the Tune 2FS or something like that, allows you to turn on DMA rights for
HD farm.
That HD farm, that's what it is, HD farm. And from what I've read, a lot of people claim miracles, to prove their hard drive throughput. Other people say, go ahead, wish on. Really, the logic's not there to support that theory.
It's a big improvement over not having it turned on. Compared to SCSI, it's still
And it depends on support in the hard drive controller and motherboard. Basically, all three pieces have to play well, and then you can turn on that feature and get some performance out of it.
What's your opinion on RAID 0, 1, RAID 10, or RAID 5?
Well, RAID 10 is RAID 1 plus
Yeah.
0. Different reasons for doing both. You've actually got the, did you draw the diagram somewhere?
I have a 0 plus 1, I don't have a 1 plus 0.
If I remember correctly, RAID 0 is striking.
Yes.
You take multiple disks, you turn them into one disk. RAID 1 is mirroring. So 0 plus 1 is where you take a bunch of disks, you stripe them, and then you mirror them with another bunch of disks which have been striped. You're paying different, I used to know this off the top of my head. There's different performance rules. You have to consider whether you're losing more by the mirroring logic or by the striping logic, and then also in the complexity, because your ability to grow volumes, whether they're one or the other, becomes a little bit more tricky. I usually just, my model is take your OS, mirror it with another disk, and then use a product like, Veritas Volume Manager or some other big product to manage all your volumes. But typically what we do, or what I've done, is stripe and then mirror. So stripe and mirror.
You do RAID 5 often or not?
Not in software. Performance kills. RAID 5 for that matter. What's that?
Or RAID 4?
RAID 4, yeah. RAID 4 and RAID 5 is a little bit different. For those not familiar with it, RAID 4 allows you to take a number of disks with a single parity disk, and RAID 5 basically is more complex, and they stripe and mirror the parity across the disk. So I'll turn it over to Gordon and let him talk about RAID, and I'll watch this guy do it. Here's Gordon.
I've noticed on the board.
Let me play games on the computer while he's talking.
Too bad it doesn't come with the For anyone not familiar, RAID is just an acronym standing for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. Somebody figured out 10, 12, 15 years ago or more that instead of making individual drives bigger and bigger and bigger and having them be a single point of failure, you can take a bunch of little cheap drives and glom them all together and now have some redundancy and have more flexibility and have more room to grow. Current techniques involve RAIDing either in hardware or in software. IBM, Compaq, a number of vendors all have hardware cards where you can plug in SCSI channels, numbers of drives on those SCSI channels, and manage them as stripes or mirrors or RAID 5 stripes. I don't know of any that will do RAID 4 at the hardware level, but that's a very uncommon RAID as far as RAID levels go. In software, you've got some of the big players, EMC, Veritas, and IBM have RAID tools to manage that in software. Linux now has, just in the last few years, gotten RAID tools for managing RAID striping, mirroring,